Of my team. See you.
What percentage?
All right, I think we're good to go. Chair, I'm going to hand the microphone over to you to start the meeting.
At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order on October 9th, 2025 at 5:35 p.m. This is our 7th meeting, and we're glad to have you all because last time we didn't make a quorum. So glad that everyone has made it that's here. So we are going to start this evening a little bit different. We had some citizens that came to the last meeting, and well, we couldn't hear them because we didn't have a quorum. So they've been kind enough to come back again. So we're going to start that way, and it's not on the agenda, so we're not going to be able to discuss with them or comment on what they're going to be telling us, but we certainly can listen and take their thoughts into our actions. So I guess that, John, if you want to go ahead and we'll go ahead and bring up our citizens now, and we'll go from there.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am Carol Stilley, and I have lived in Arlington almost 35 years now. The steering committee posed interesting questions at the August meeting. How do we get UTA students to stay in Arlington after graduating? And how do we attract more young adults and families? And these are great questions for a 20-year plan. Gen Z and millennials are two of the most surveyed groups in the country. College students fit in the demographic category Gen Z, which is age range 15 through 28. Millennials are the young adults and families in the age range 29 to 44. Surveys reveal that just like everyone else, what is important to Gen Z and millennials are things like jobs, economic growth, safety, affordable housing, and a sense of community. The differences and their importance to them give us insight on how to attract them. First, climate change. This is an urgent environmental issue that is weighing ever more heavily on Gen Z and millennials. It impacts their future. Number two, sustainability, which is defined as living in the world so that future generations can meet their needs. This is very important to them. 3, transparency and authenticity. Their expectations when dealing with others are for openness and doing what you say you'll do. And lastly, 4, personal responsibility. Gen Z and millennials are prioritizing sustainability in their personal, career, and consumer decisions. They believe they have a personal responsibility for sustainability. They also realize that it takes more than individuals alone. So they expect the companies they buy from, the companies they work for, and the cities they live in to take responsibility as well. Local examples of businesses taking responsibility come from 2 new developments, Viridian and Grand Prairie's Homeland. They both proclaim that they are sustainable and eco-conscious, and they give examples how their developments accomplish this. So to answer the original questions, what actions can we take to attract young adults? A start would be, first, address climate change and fast-track the transition to clean energy and clean air. Second, hire a sustainability executive to manage a sustainability plan for the future of Arlington. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the 20-year Planning Committee. My name's Anthony Nagy. I live at 1000 Curtis Court. I've lived at that address for 45 years. I'm talking to you tonight to consider clean and plentiful water. Water is not merely a city-provided utility. Water is a lifeline. Its presence or absence determines the viability of human habitation. Without an adequate drinking water supply to replenish our bodies and provide a sanitary and healthy environment, survival is impossible. Water is not to be used without thought or waste. Arlington has an award-winning water treatment facility, and at present supply does not seem to be a problem, even though, like me, a substantial amount of drinkable water is currently used for irrigation. Arlington should cope with an increased population you are considering. In the past, and maybe presently, Arlington produced an excess supply of treated water and even sold it to surrounding communities and became a profit center for the city. During the summer months, my household, 2 adults, uses roughly 16,000 gallons of treated water per month, compared to less than 1,000 gallons per month during the colder months. Average household usage goes from about 30 gallons a day to over 500 gallons a day. This generally agrees with an estimate that over 70% of global fresh water is used for agriculture. In my case, it's the grass in my my wife's garden. I expect that most residential properties have similar usage of our precious water. Believe me, I think about the cost and exorbitant use. So what does this all mean? Reducing the use of treated water for watering lawns substantially increases life-sustaining water supply. There is that concept again, sustainability. I'm going to deviate a little bit from my reading here because recently the Tarrant Water Board is looking for water. They're looking for lakes. This area is going to be short of water. And it is my own personal opinion that one of these days there will be wars over water. Water will be fought over. Water is very necessary. In planning for a sustainable future, community education for existing landscaping and irrigation is needed, and conservative landscaping should be required for existing and new developments. On the sewer side of the system, avoidance of pollution is the key. The need for community education is needed to point out the efforts of careless acts that poison our water system, such as disposing of drugs, motor or cooking oil, or any other poison of life into the sanitary or street water sewers. Thank you. As a brief footnote, the addition of 35,000 people with expected automobiles and service vehicles will exacerbate the traffic strangulation for a group of the population that once thought of Arlington as a livable hometown. Thank you.
All right. We've now all introduced city staff that we have with us tonight, and I personally want to thank all of them for being here. These experts are with us tonight to dive into some questions that y'all have been having over the past year, highlight some of the big projects that that the city has been working on for numerous years, and talking more about the future. But starting from the left to our right, we have Lindsay Mitchell, who is the director of the Office of Strategic Initiatives. We have Alicia Winkelblatt, who is the director of transportation. We have Dr. Ann Foss, who is the planning and programming manager with the transportation department. We have Marty Weeder, who is our Arlington Economic Development Corporation Executive Director. We have Gus Garcia, who is our Director of Economic Development with the Office of Economic Development. We also have Daniel Burnham, who is our Assistant Director and City Engineer with Public Works, as well as Keith Brooks, who is our Director of Public Works. Would y'all like to say anything before we move on? All right. So thank y'all.
Now, at this time, Jay Rinkins, principal in charge, and Marco Venosa, project manager from MIG, will present the vision framework update. And John, I'm gonna have you MC this. And go ahead and run this part of our agenda.
And Jay, just so that y'all are aware, they have the framework in front of them. It's a pamphlet, as well as a copy of the comments that we've received from committee members, some of the reflection comments that's in the 11 by 17 pulled out. And then I forgot to mention one thing just for some logistics. Bathroom facilities is going to be down this hallway to the left. Jay?
Great. Thank you, John. Hope everyone can hear me okay. We have taken the input that we received from our last meetings with you all and updated the vision framework. So we wanted to talk through that this evening and then continue to get input. And as John said, with the guests, both he and the guests will be providing some updates on the specific vision elements around certain things that are happening already as a way to help inform where we go from here. So you can advance, Marco. So I think everyone remembers we took all the input from the first portion of the project, the committee input, the steering committee input, a series of stakeholder interviews and focus groups, and provided an initial draft across our last couple of meetings, actually, of the vision elements, although at the last meeting we went a little deeper into the goals themselves. So that was at the June 26th meeting where we received specific feedback on the vision framework. Go ahead, Marco. So the vision framework, we've updated several aspects to incorporate your comments. I'll go through each of these, but just so you remember, there are 5. So we're gonna, step through each of these. We have Mentimeter polling as a part of this. We'll also just, invite some conversation and dialogue. But just as a reminder, vibrant and safe. So really thinking about, Arlington being a great place to live with great neighborhoods, gathering places, having housing options, having ideally close to home daily needs and amenities. Innovative and thriving, so really, continuing to elevate Arlington as a world-class city, being a leader not only in the economy, but also I think as some of the citizen comment highlighted again this evening, thinking about some of the challenges that we face when it comes to things like climate change, water supply, water quality, and really some of our other elements here too in terms of, such as connected and walkable, which is our third one. So that's really around thinking about not just how do we get around, but also the location efficiency of different uses. So what do we have in and close to neighborhoods? What do we have in and close to different employment districts or mixed-use districts? And then what are the facilities like? What are the opportunities like to move around that may be beyond just getting around by car? We do realize that will continue to most likely be the most prominent form of transportation, but can we offer additional options? Sustainable and healthy, so that's really thinking about a broader sustainability around our infrastructure, around resiliency, thinking about in sustainability and resiliency, kind of all aspects of that in terms of social, environmental, and economic. Then also thinking about community health and our open space and parks. And then welcoming and community culture is around inclusion, around multicultural community, really making sure that we're kind of thinking about all the people who live in Arlington or who may be in Arlington in the next 20 years, and how are we ensuring that they have offerings that reflect, sort of their interests, but also that there's easy avenues to participate and feel engaged in the community. Next slide. So we are shifting this evening. We want to kind of confirm the vision elements and goals, but this is also a shift in beginning to think about policies, initiatives, and catalytic projects. Within the comprehensive plan, with the currently adopted plan, and if you look at examples of other comprehensive plans around the region, the state, around the country, there are elements, so those are kind of the chapters of the plan, typically organized by topic, I think we're leaning towards a more of a thematic approach using the vision elements, but still each topic will be covered within those vision element themed sections. And within that, then you have your goals. We want to articulate metrics. The committee gave us that direction from the very start, as did council. But then we need really specific policies, initiatives, and catalytic projects. And that's really the kind of the meat of the plan. And then there'll be an implementation strategy to talk about more specifically how to achieve some of these specific things. So new and improved policies typically, and it's not hard and fast rule, but typically require only city involvement of internal reorganization rules, regulations. So those are things that the city kind of fully controls at a policy level. There could be policies, admittedly, maybe they're regional, right? Like kind of working with the MPO or other partner agencies at a policy level. But again, tend to be city involvement. And then initiatives and catalytic projects. These could be physical improvements. They don't, I think most of those examples are. But they could also be programs and things like that, that fall in the initiatives category. And so these typically would require some public financial investment, but coordination with external stakeholders as well. So that's just a little tee up as we kind of discuss each of the vision elements and solicit your input on where we might want to be emphasizing some of these new policies, initiatives, and catalytic projects. Next slide. So starting with vibrant and safe. I'm going to read some of this. I'll try to not read every word, but I think it's important. So just elaborating on what we mean by vibrant and safe. Arlington is a great place to live that residents are proud to call home, with beautiful neighborhoods, vibrant and fun gathering places, access to daily needs and amenities, and a variety of housing options. And what we've heard through all the different input so far is that residents really want Arlington to be a place they feel proud to live in, where neighborhoods are well maintained. I think we've heard a lot of discussion about, there's a lot of variety within the existing neighborhoods in terms of maintenance, in terms of age, even types of housing that are available. And then we want public spaces that support community gathering, and community safety is a high priority as well. So some elements of that: enhanced public spaces, pedestrian public safety, neighborhood reinvestment. And then the goals that we've articulated based on your all's input are support reinvestment in neighborhoods, cleanliness of public spaces, and beautification efforts that help contribute to Arlington Pride. Supporting placemaking initiatives, so that would be trying to think about those gathering spaces, thinking about public art, thinking about landscaping, and things that really contribute to creating public and private gathering places, as well as just memorable experiences, sense of place. Promoting infill development of underutilized properties to provide desired development types and benefits to the community. So, it's kind of in this parallel track. We had gameplay where we solicited input about different places that people wanted to see and where to accommodate the projected growth in terms of jobs and housing and population. Another key piece of that was thinking about infill, thinking about are there opportunities for redevelopment in different locations, and so really thinking about underutilization of property and how can we kind of direct growth or direct reinvestment, I should say. It doesn't necessarily need to have to be bigger than what's there now, but reinvestment to increase the tax roll, to provide additional amenities and services closer to home, hopefully provide new jobs and housing as we do that as well. And then promoting public safety by growing community relationships, enhancing safety awareness, leveraging technology, and utilizing effective methods that prioritize crime prevention in addition to enforcement. So next slide. So each kind of progression here with each vision element, we're going to use the Mentimeter to solicit input, and then we'll have some discussion around that after John and perhaps other city staff present a few updates for you. But they'll do that while you can respond to this. So let's, if you want to use a QR code, you can. You can also navigate to www.menti.com on your phone, on a tablet if you have it. I don't know, I can't see everyone's, you're not large enough, I can't see anyone's computer, but however you want to navigate to this. And then enter code 46052652.
Says we're waiting for presenter.
Yeah.
Does anyone need the Wi-Fi password? Just let me know.
Marco, it says they're waiting for presenter. And probably just to advance, so.
Yeah, once everyone's ready, I can do that, so. Let me know when I can advance, John, once everyone's logged in.
Anyone need more time?
A couple more.
Yeah, a couple more.
Okay, no problem. We have 19 logged in so far.
If anyone's in the public, the QR code is only for the committee members. How many are logged in right now? We have 17 committee members. 21 is logged in. So just FYI.
21.
Please only if you're a committee member respond to this QR code. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to advance, Marco? So if anyone is still trying to get on, it is on the top of there, menti.com, and the code 46052652. But basically what we want to do is hear your ideas for policies, initiatives, and projects to advance this vision element, so vibrant and safe. So you can, it should be open-ended, you can, I think, enter multiple. Is that correct, Marco? Yeah. So just wait till we get a few coming in, and then we can go back to the PowerPoint while folks continue to provide feedback on this. So the first one that came in, encourage urban renewal by removing obstacles for new infill development. Create an advocate approach to help small business and infill investors. So reducing barriers, a lot of times that's around cost, permitting, red tape, sometimes just a bureaucratic process. And then it looks like providing aid, technical support, could be financial support for small businesses and infill investors. So folks can continue to respond to this. Great, we'll cover a couple more and then we'll switch back to the presentation. We will circle back and have a little discussion around it, but safety being really important, using a program like Upspire for cleaning area, Upcity, greater technology infrastructure. Yeah, especially on that kind of innovative theme. Support can look lots of ways. Both investment by city and others. Overlay play will help clarification, increase additional initiatives like National Night Out for neighborhoods to increase togetherness, zero tolerance for crime, broken window prevention theory, more walkable, focus on job creation and workforce. Great, so we're going to keep this open, but Marco, if you can switch over to the presentation. And we'll turn it over to John.
So I'm going to highlight one of the assessments that's currently going on with Public Works. That's the sidewalk assessment program. This started back in August with the Public Works Department. It's going to help support our city's ADA transition plan, as well as creating the first sidewalk master plan. So the three primary goals that is part of this is assessing our current pedestrian infrastructure, updating the ADA transition plan, as well as guiding future sidewalk improvements. And sidewalks, as we know from phase one, is something that community members are really looking forward to, connecting our existing neighborhoods into more of our retail areas. So this plan will not only help us assess where we are today, but understand kind of the opportunity zones for some of those sidewalk conditions, as well as connections that we'll need to address as part of the Innovate Arlington Comprehensive Plan. So we have with us, of course, Mr. Daniel Burnham and Mr. Keith Brooks. Would y'all like to add anything else to kind of where we stand on this project?
We've currently been doing data collection, and we've been doing the assessment, and I don't know if you've seen the picture of that little van driving around all the neighborhoods in Arlington, but within the next couple of weeks, we'll be done with the data collection, and we'll be importing that data into an assessment tool, and we'll be performing the assessments on all the sidewalks in areas in Arlington that don't have sidewalks as well. And then we're working with all different departments of the city to identify and figure out all the different elements of the ADA transition plan so that we can start putting a framework together for that document.
Anyone else have any other comments they'd like to add to this? Any questions?
I have a question.
And then just name for the record.
Taylor Older, thanks for coming. Has this type of assessment on sidewalks been done before? I know you go through your roads and assess their where they're at, the status and everything, but do you do this on sidewalks regularly, or is this first time, or how?
This is the first time we've performed this style of assessment, and we plan on incorporating this assessment in with our annual roadway assessments in the future. So we have a 3-year plan to be able to assess every single road in the city, and we provide a condition index, and we will now be adding the sidewalks to that once this project is complete.
Hey, this is Mike Columbus, and question about many of the neighborhoods were built without curb gutters or bar ditches, and others were built with just without sidewalks. So how would this plan affect those neighborhoods?
The plan is not going to define that we put new sidewalks in where there aren't any today. That is not the primary goal of this plan. If a neighborhood is devoid of sidewalks, then it's going to remain that way unless the residents come to us and say, hey, wait, we want sidewalks. One of the other items that we're currently working on is a safe route to school plans for all different campuses in Arlington. And that would be a situation where we may introduce sidewalks in a neighborhood that doesn't have any, because we're trying to accommodate children on their routes to school. But this master plan is more for areas where there are sidewalks needed and sidewalks are required, but they're not there today, or we have sidewalks in poor condition and we're needing to prioritize our improvements, and so the assessment will help us with that.
Any other questions from the committee members? All right. Yes.
Aftab Siddiqui, thank you very much. Okay, I have a personal story. One of my friends who was disabled and was on a wheelchair, and she had to move out of the city where she had been living for decades, and she moved to Austin because she couldn't really move to do her groceries and things like that. So, is the city working towards something like that, like we have in Austin and some other cities? And I would really like to know your point of view. Thank you.
Sure. I cannot tell you what Austin does. I'm not familiar with what their program is, but the city of Arlington does have an ADA program to address the needs of folks that have any kind of disability. As soon as we receive a request, we work with that resident to identify what their need is, and then we immediately prioritize that need into a current project or into a project that is upcoming in the near future. We build sidewalks to address residents' needs from, I need to go from my home to the grocery store, from my home down to the gas station, all the time. And it's a very regular part of our business. And the city has a website, the city's website has an ADA page where you can place your request.
Any other questions?
Robert Snyder. And I was just wondering, I don't know if this would be a question for you or maybe more on the development side, but how is this plan going to, how is it going to be used and how will it work hand in hand with new developments and the development of those sidewalks there?
Sure. We will be working with the development team. Most developments, when they come in, are required to implement sidewalks on their properties. The biggest difference will be which type of roadway, what kind of classification. Most residential roads are not required to have sidewalks, whereas a collector roadway or an arterial roadway is. And so while we work with developments as needed when they come in to improve their property, most of our identification will be used when we do projects. So, hey, I'm gonna rebuild this roadway because it's time for the roadway to get improved, and I'm now gonna include sidewalk improvements as well for areas that either aren't there or need improvements.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Burnham. We want to check in with what we have on the Mentimeter.
Yeah, that sounds great. Margo, can you switch back to Mentimeter?
And then this is also an open discussion, so we can discuss ideas at all before we move on to the next vision element as well.
Yeah, so we'll highlight a few more, but yeah, if people want to comment on any, I'll try to prompt a couple of questions as well. But increasing additional initiatives like National Night Out for neighborhoods to increase togetherness would really absolutely fit within this category, particularly that last goal that we articulated, emphasizing police and first responder partnerships, increasing visibility. We have not, as of yet, done direct kind of conversations with police, but I think that's something we can definitely do. And thinking about what types of recommendations are suitable for the comprehensive plan on that kind of front. Help areas of blight, older infrastructure, underdevelopment, et cetera, develop unique character, assist those neighborhoods with financial resources to reach development goals. Whoever said that one, I'm just curious, is that specific to neighborhoods or is it districts or both? Someone willing to chime in there?
Yeah, so this is Zach Graves, and I think the emphasis on that one is in areas that maybe have felt like they've been neglected by the city or not been a major focus point, and just development has come in and just grown without any particular guidance over the years, or maybe hasn't been looked at in a while, helping those communities feel like they are a vibrant place, a safe place, and a place that they feel, as the slide described, are proud to be a part of those areas. So helping them focus on some goals, what makes their neighborhood unique, what makes their community unique, and from there create some financial goals to help build infrastructure in the correct way for each neighborhood, kind of uniquely. But I would say kind of more at the neighborhood level.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's kind of three places in the plan where we can address that, because that definitely has been a key theme, I think, from the committee and from council and staff. It's kind of thinking about how are we reinvesting, and how do we do that in a more thoughtful way, I guess. To your point, it's not just, it doesn't feel random or haphazard. It's actually sort of adding up to a whole that is a place. So the place types is one of those, so we're really providing great place type guidance, which we are continuing to advance. Indicating in the preferred scenario, as we're approaching that with alternative scenarios and preferred scenario, what type of place is most desired by the community in each area. And then importantly, I think that in these policies, right, there can be different tools, different strategies to address that as well and incentivize good quality development and partnerships. And to your point, it's both about the private investment and the public investment, in those. And it's going to be, there's not a one size fits all, it varies quite a bit across neighborhoods. A significant communication plan was mentioned that will travel across all segments of the framework, be a foundation for success, a percentage for arts program for public art and public spaces, continue to support the financial and other resources for form-based code, neighborhood policing, Is that code enforcement? Is that the thought there? Or is that more direction on design of neighborhoods? And either the person who made the comment or others can chime in too if they want.
This is Anthony Powell. I made the comment about form-based code, but I think that's, you know, a area where we have a pilot area within the city that we're exploring utilizing form-based code, and I think it can create, you know, through the design aspect of things with, you know, the way, I guess, you know, open spaces closer to the streets, parks, you know, or not parks, but walkways, trees, those types of things that will give more visibility. So I think people will feel safer if they're moving throughout those types of neighborhoods. So I think that's maybe a design element that can be built in along with the form-based code.
Great, thank you. There's a good comment about Citywide Arts Commission, allowing funding for development, enhancing tree canopy, especially in parks, schools, and public spaces, increasing walkable streets and areas. Study indicates strong link to walkability and a strong economy. I think that has been a theme throughout, having more localized walkable places and things to walk to. So it's definitely something that we're trying to promote in the creation of the scenarios, different growth scenarios, and sort of the application of all the inputs we receive from the gameplay. So we'll definitely be advancing that with you in coming meetings and the public workshop in early November. Partnering with possible incentives for property owners regarding infill development potential. So thinking about are there public-private partnership opportunities? Sometimes that can come in the form of leveraging city-owned property. Sometimes it can be financial incentives or other ways to streamline or expedite development. Addressing home ownership and missing middle housing support, vibrant communities, and then advanced technology, drones, stationary cameras, and towers to supplement in-person policing. Okay, so using technology to enhance public safety. And then the last one down there, safe, also includes traffic. So better management of traffic signals for both drivers and pollution control. So reducing idling and that sort of thing, I think, is part of that comment, but also safety, of course. So that we do want to move to our next vision element, but anyone else want to share a comment about anything within this vibrant and safe vision element before we move on?
Taylor Oldroyd. Sorry, just real quick. Well, I'm the one that made the comment about incentivizing property owners to partner with the city. I think that's important because I think right now the trend has been the city would purchase the property and then look for a developer. I'd rather see us, partnering with the landowner rather than the city get in the development business. I think it's important to have developers and landowners incentivized to do what should be a private sector thing rather than public sector.
Yeah, we've definitely seen in certain communities the model of acquiring property and then issuing an RFP, and you can do either requirements or deed restrictions or whatever to sort of get the outcome you want. But there can be an over-reliance on that too. I think to your point. And so, what are the other tools maybe at the city's disposal already, and can we introduce additional tools to facilitate those partnerships rather than relying entirely or mainly on acquiring land? I think that's a great point. Any other thoughts on this vibrant and safe vision element before we move on? All right, Marco, if we can go back to the presentation. So keep your Mentimeter open if you can. Keep that window open. We will be going back to that in just a moment. But our second vision element is innovative and thriving. Arlington is a world-class city, serving as a leader in innovation with thriving residents and businesses that contribute to a prosperous local economy. So what we've heard from the community is that the community imagines a future shaped by opportunity, innovation, and smart growth. Residents envision a city that fosters entrepreneurship, attracts future-focused industries, and creates pathways for talent retention and upward mobility. I think one of the citizen speakers were talking about attracting and retaining, recent graduates. younger professionals, families. I think this is really key there. How are we innovating in our response to, some of our challenges around climate change and sustainability? How are we growing the economy? What are those industries that make the most sense? So that is a piece of what our team is continuing to look at, working with economic development to do so. The goals encourage residents and employees to live and work in Arlington. We talked about it pretty early on in the process, but as a reminder, there's a lot of people who live in Arlington and work somewhere else, and in turn, it's not quite as many, but there's people who live elsewhere and work in Arlington. The more we can have people living and working near or within Arlington, ideally, near by with each other, we can reduce traffic trips. We, basically kind of reduce the time, which has a cost of its own, that people are having to travel, and have a stronger economy overall. Supporting partner organizations and providing workforce development opportunities to support a robust local education and employment pipeline. So this, I think, was a great suggestion from, I believe, is one of the steering committee members, is really kind of thinking about the pipeline, from K through 12, probably actually pre-K, K through 12, right, and then college, more traditional education, other technical education, internships, apprenticeships, that sort of thing, and feeding into those growth industries. Attracting and retaining local talent, especially university graduates, employers with high-paying jobs. So that would be attracting both the talent as well as the employers. Supporting small businesses and incubation entrepreneurship opportunities that promote upward economic mobility due to a thriving local economy, and boost the local economy, streamline economic development, and serve as a leader in innovation, technology, and research. Before we jump to the Mentimeter, just any comments on these? Is everyone feeling good about this? Even, we'll wordsmith as we move along, but any big concepts missing or off base?
This is Aftab Siddiqui. Thank you very much. I do think that a major element that is missing is lack of any mention of a mass transit system. I do understand that Arlington 25 years ago or back a couple of times people did vote down the concept of a mass transit, but if you really want to have a city where people can work and bring their families, and I do think that having some kind of mass transit system will really multiply the economic effects, and it will be good for people, for the families, because we do have many senior citizens living here, and HandyTran is not really good enough, frankly speaking. And then the other thing is then their families who are single car families, and only one person can go to work. So I do think that if we really want to have a multiplier effect in the economy and get more people involved, that having some kind of mass transit will be a good idea.
Okay, great. The next vision element does mention public transportation, innovative public transportation, but I think what you're saying, what we're emphasizing here is that how we get around, how we get people to jobs, and having that beyond options beyond just automobile are key to the economy as well. So we'll definitely think about how to incorporate that.
One more.
All right.
One more.
Another thought?
Lenia Henderson. I wanted to just think, I was saving my transportation comments for the next section, but when it comes to innovative and thriving and holding local talent here, we need a place for them to live, to also be able to build personal wealth. And we don't have a lot of entry-level homes here. And so I think specifically for this category, where we may address ADUs. And I know Arlington doesn't want ADUs. I'm sorry, we don't have any more real estate. So we're gonna have to think about some kind of ADU overlay, even if we just do a trial area to have those ADUs for multifamily, or for the opportunity for that graduate to have their own space and to build their wealth. We need some kind of plan. There are other cities that have been successful in that, that will keep those people here and not going to live in an apartment and then realizing that the world is bigger and want to go somewhere else and lose their connection with this place that we hold so precious. Does that make sense for this category?
Yeah, totally understand that. And then, yeah, I would add in addition that ADUs as one of those solutions, attached single-family housing could be a piece of that. Other missing middle products, but yeah, right now it's a single-family home, or seemingly. I know this is it's not exclusively this, but for the most part, we have a single-family home option, and we have apartments, right? And so, what are those other options for folks?
Hi, Taylor Oldright.
Thanks, John.
ADUs is accessory dwelling unit for any of the steering committee that didn't know what ADU is, accessory dwelling unit.
Can I say something?
The expert.
This is Karen Devi Bowman, principal planner of the long range planning team. Just to address your question of starting with the pilot area or for smaller areas, the test, we do have a form-based code project that the city is working on, and we're looking at downtown and the neighborhood to the north, and also neighborhood closer to the Meadowbrook Park, and ADUs will be allowed by right in those areas. So we are looking at that, and we're working on the code. The code is not, the consultant is still working on it. We have received only half of it. Hopefully, by the end of this year, we will have the entire code and we'll be able to share it with the public, and we'll have more information on the open house and all of that. But yes, we're looking at that option.
Marco, do you mind? We'll take another comment if there's one, but Marco, do you mind just advancing the Mentimeter if you haven't already? So if we can continue to accept some comments if there are any, but you can also, we'll advance the Mentimeter to the second vision element, so innovative and thriving. So again, ideas around different policies, initiatives, projects, as we begin to tonight, begin to build out what some of the key policy direction and projects will be moving forward. But are there other comments before John presents the next set of sort of current projects that are underway? All right, Marco, do you want to go back to the presentation? All folks are responding to the Mentimeter.
All right, so we're going to highlight some of the Economic Development Corporation and Office of Economic Development work, as well as the Office of Strategic Initiatives. The first being the Economic Development Strategic Plan. This was adopted by Council back in 2021, as well as, I believe, the board, or was there was a board. So this recognizes, much like what we've been discussing here as a committee and a community, that Arlington is largely built out, and that is a challenge. And so we need to strategically think about how do we redevelop, and that's going to be our key to Arlington's future economic growth. So some of the strategies in the Economic Development Strategic Plan include advancing those catalytic projects that currently exist in Arlington, such along Six Flags East, West Division Street, and the I-30 properties, as well as exploring new redevelopment areas, such as the Great Southwest Industrial Park, Lincoln Square, UTA Entertainment District Corridor, the International Corridor, and UTA's Research Park expansion. Next slide, please. There's a couple of additional big points that we've also been discussing, and that includes strengthening the UTA community connectors, adding amenities for students and young professionals, including improvements in our connectivity with sidewalks, bike lanes, trails, signage, and general urban beautification, as well as targeting investment areas. That's going to be focused on key districts and corridors identified by the Office of Economic Development, our EDC, and City Council, as well as encouraging public-private partnerships for commercial, industrial, and residential development. And then analyzing and diving deep into what those success metrics look like. Parcels that are acquired through land assemblage and activation, capital investment by area, developed square footage, as well as investment leverage through the P3s or the public-private partnerships. Marty, Gus, did y'all have anything else you kind of want to add to that?
I can touch on, if you'd like, a couple of the things that y'all covered here that might be of help as you think about all this. That TIP strategy in the first slide that you saw was actually produced in 2021, was acted on in 2022, and we're thrilled you guys are doing the comp plan because that's really, it's about time to do a new economic development strategic plan. So it's got great pieces in it and it's working, I believe. I think it's important on that previous slide to stress on the redevelopment part, the word that came out of the strategic plan was transformational. We don't need just to take what we've got and put a shine on it and put some of the same in it, if that makes sense from a business standpoint. We've got to get high-paying jobs. We've got to take it, especially related to, let's say, the Great Southwest Industrial District you just covered, and ensure, as we're doing public-private partnerships, Taylor, and we're doing our best to encourage that with a number of people, and rather than doing it ourselves, but to make sure that we come in, if we team with somebody, or we do take it on ourselves, that we raise the bar as to the type of development there, that it's more of the kinds like Mosey, the autonomous vehicle manufacturer that's relocated, or like eSpace that we just had the groundbreaking on last week. That's critical. The other thing I would point out on that first slide that we had, you've got some great corridors and some catalyst projects, but our concern too is to make sure it happens throughout the city. I think that was the beauty of the groundbreaking last week for eSpace, is it's right at Arlington Municipal Airport to the south side of the city, and it has tremendous implications for economically for what could affect the city. I would stress on that part of UTA's research park expansion. Keep in mind, if they do it, it's state property, it comes off the tax rolls. So maybe we tag team with them in a public-private partnership and ensure it's privately done, so it stays on the roll and is taxable. On the strategic plan part, the second slide, the one that's up there, I want to make sure you all know we have some great partnerships already with the University of Texas at Arlington, and I think we're going to continue to try to build more. We're especially tied in with the Center for Technology and Entrepreneurial Development. Paul Corson sits on our Economic Development Corporation board. We team with them on 1 billion cups weekly. We're doing things in concert. I think we're going to just build on that. I think there's a great opportunity to see that grow. I would tell you, when it comes to some of these metrics and the things we're trying to do to foster redevelopment, transformational redevelopment, we've created a new group called DevNet, short for Arlington Development Network. We met this past week and brought in somebody to talk about CBASE, which is a thing that's been created that allows property owners to come in and make environmental and utility improvements to their building and be able to tuck it in within their existing structure and pay it out over the years without an additional cost. It's an incentive, but it's also environmental in nature. So it's got a daily double to an extent. We had somebody this week when we had talk about brownfields. I sent a staff member up to Chicago and she brought back and talked about it. Even though the federal government's thinking about shaving that down, we still think there's opportunities, and maybe the EDC can provide grant help with that as well. And then we talked about Lindsay Mitchell's shop, and I know she had to step away, but she, the mapping and all that they do for us as we talk to property owners, that's available to all kinds of property owners, is such a great tool. And let's face it, that's what all these are. There are tools for redevelopment that we've got to make sure and communicate out to the development community like we did today, and work in tandem with Taylor's group, with Arbor and others, just to continue to hit that note of, here are some things you can do, let's team up and do them together. Does that help? Gus, you got anything else?
Yeah. John, I think there's one more slide too.
I was going to touch on that after. It's kind of separate from the strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah, just to pile on to what Marty was saying. Obviously, everything he was saying was pertinent to the conversation, but you know, one of the things that came up, and we did some restructuring and reorganization within the city of Arlington, where, as you heard, we have the Office of Economic Development, and we have the EDC, and then OSI, and it's a really big team that works on economic development at the city. And it really is a team sport, right? We kind of see ourselves as all economic developers, and then you have finance, and you have legal, and then you have the CMO's office, and then just a myriad of other people and departments. And one of the things that is part of the restructuring that they did to address Mr. Gray's comment, you know, we recognize that there's blight and there's redevelopment and infill and neighborhood revitalization. And one of the things they've done is the Office of Economic Development is now you still have the Office of Economic Development, but you have the Economic Development Services Group, and it's the new department, and those two, code compliance and Office of Economic Development, rolls under it. And one of the things that we have, you probably heard of it, is the clean team, and then we have code compliance. And so we're visiting with other departments like streets and public works and planning and zoning, and looking at what the correlation between blight and code enforcement and policing and economic development and small business, you know, come together so that we can offer all the programs and the team can work together to address some of those issues, right? Because we believe that, you know, we're all economic developers, and some of those things are economic development at its core. And then the other thing I would mention was on the UTA Entertainment District. So the downtown district and the connectivity between the Entertainment District and UTA and downtown, we believe is crucial. And so y'all point out some really good ideas and points. And so we had a recent charrette on this property over here. Well, forgetting the address, but we recognize as the Bob Johnson property over here on Abrams next to the Mott. And so there was a public charrette, so it's public information, where we went and we got the community's input on what is it you want to see. And so it's a lot of placemaking, it's a lot of attractive features that are going to bring in those young folks so we can keep them here, right? We want to make Arlington sticky for those graduates. And so that's been on our mind, it's been top of, you know, discussion, et cetera. And then we have some other downtown development projects, several, that are taking place that are going to provide some housing and provide some entertainment and, you know, eateries and shops and curios, and have that real connection between the Entertainment District and UTA, right? So these things are obviously being discussed and implemented and are happening as we speak. And so I just wanted to make sure, you know, say those things so that you're aware that this is happening right now. And so it's really awesome that you guys are already identifying these things and that we're actually working on, so we can see that we're kind of on the same page going forward. So that's all I wanted to add.
And then lastly, just wanted to touch on some of the economic development and Office of Economic Development partnerships and programs that they have, specifically the Life Fund, which is up to a small grant, up to $100,000, or I'm sorry, a loan, but a zero interest loan. It allows for small businesses and aspiring entrepreneurs that may not, correct me if I'm wrong, may not have access to a lot of capital or investors to help jumpstart their careers and businesses here in Arlington. And then the EDC also has a cohort partnership, which is a program that consists of 6 classes, and they are engaged to help, again, entrepreneurs and small businesses build programs to help support their staff and employees, as well as growing their business. They meet once a month, and it's to advance the company's growth. So just a couple of programs, but as Marty mentioned, there's a variety of programs that are not here. These are just more kind of the local programs.
Yeah, John, if you'd allow me, real quick, Gus reminded me, Troy with the Office of Business Outreach is also doing some things here in addition to what we're doing. I would stress, you may not be aware, but our city manager had the wisdom in looking at what state law governs economic development corporations. We couldn't by law work with small businesses. We were constrained with certain things, but we found a way to do it that just got an award from the International Economic Development Council, got a bronze award, that permits us to turn around and do some exchange with the water department and be able to do some of these programs. And I would tell you, it's interesting, right at this moment, one of my staff members, Kay Brown Patrick, and one of her assistants are out working a cohort on construction industries, smaller businesses. If I can add one thing on Lift Fund, it's for people that have gone and sought financing and have had no success. And so our council was willing to buy that down to make it be zero interest rate. And it's a good program because it allows somebody who's had a tough time can show they're either going to retain businesses or attract new ones. They can get some help through that Lift Fund effort.
My question is back to both Nina Henderson, and my question is to both Gus and Marty. For y'all, okay, it's great that we're thinking about these things now, that we're projecting for 20 years, and you're already doing them. And so what is your dream or knowledge? What are the barriers and goals that you're following up on that we haven't imagined yet? That because it's already starting to happen, that we need to be putting into this plan specifically, because these are ideals. These aren't necessarily the measurables and the goals specifically. I'm thinking about all these big blocks of pavement of car yards, and not just pick on the car yards, but what used to be construction, and these places that can now be a thriving community with business on the bottom level and housing as a part of it, and then parking that can be used near the event spaces surrounding the entertainment district and UTA. What are the things you're thinking of that we haven't thought about? Because in the end, we're responsible for asking the questions that we don't know to ask.
Yeah, no, sure. Happy to chime in. Marty can, I'm sure, come with his comments. I think some of it's already been said, and I think you've already touched on it. And the key word is transformational, right? So Arlington back in 1950s, 60s, when GM was established, and we became very much a blue-collar community, right? Many people saw it as a bedroom community, et cetera. But the reality is we're very different today, right? But we're built out, so that's the challenge. So I think one of the biggest things from my perspective is, and we have this conversation all the time, is we have to have somewhat vertical development and redevelopment, right? Former Mayor Jeff Williams used to say, we're under-demolished, right? And so I think transformational development, and Marty touched on having a new strategic plan, which I think is key, especially with this input now. But my thoughts are that how do we find projects that are transformational and catalysts at the same time, so that we can get those high-paying tech, advanced manufacturing, and still maintain, a vibrant, safe place that appeals to all the community, the missing middle, those individuals that need affordable but nice housing, right? Our housing stock is great, but so how are we looking at projects that are going to retain and keep it sticky for those graduates? And then how do we find jobs or developments, I should say, that are going to be transformational and take us into, the 22nd century, so to speak, right? So we got to be forward thinking and future proofing our community. So those are the things I'm looking at as an economic developer, and making sure that we're incentivizing and recruiting those types of projects versus just your everyday, willy-nilly, oh, hey, let's do your project because we think you have a great idea. So it really has to be a transformative catalyst type of development. So those are my thoughts on it.
Hey, this is Mike Columbus, and I just want to make a comment about the co-op partnership. I've long overdue program that's, I don't know the amount of participation has been in that program. I've been a long advocate of bringing industry leaders in Arlington together with like financial or construction related backgrounds. I come from the financial, so it would be great to bring in the bankers and the insurance agents and the CPAs and the financial brokers together so that we can support each other and educate each other about what our needs are in that particular industry. Likewise, in the construction industry, the real estate industry, the manufacturing industry. So this is a great idea to bring forth, and I really appreciate that y'all are taking that initiative, and hopefully you can partner with the Chamber of Commerce. We have a great chamber here in Arlington, but I think that they need to do a similar type of activity, bringing industry-related support groups together within the chamber instead of just ethnic or gender-based support groups, and expand that.
They're doing that, in fact, in a number of different categories, including restaurants. The chamber is.
Yes.
Yes.
Got a couple more questions, Jay.
Great.
I'm Bruce Dalton. On with economic development plans. What is the participation level we have now, and how are you tracking the results?
We have metrics, and I know Lindsay had to step away. We do these annual reports. In fact, we printed up last year. We've had annual reports, but we've never had a hard copy. And last year we printed it up, and we're working now, my staff, We're blessed to have staff members in other city departments. We have a staff member in communication, Teresa Burnett, who's been working with designers and putting in place all the data. In every one of those, we put out data and show the impact. Actually, since we first started, I think, counting it up back in 2006, you got to have the metrics. And so we do a tag team and presentation to council from time to time. We've got one coming up here in a couple of months.
But I didn't hear a number.
In terms of specific numbers, they're detailed. I mean, they're in all different kinds of categories. I don't have them memorized. I can try to get you, if you'd like. We're going to be presenting to council. I think it's November 4th. We're going to be presenting them to that day. So what we'll be glad to do is get you what these latest numbers are. I think we've been, I can share a couple of things related to a number. I think we've been very aggressive, and yet when you go back and look over the years, it's been a number about 3 or 4 major projects each year. How we continue to not only grow that number, but ensure they're of the type and job level, pay, salary level that we want to see that are tied to UTA. I think that's a big piece that has to be a component. I think you'd be glad to know that our city council and our board have taken initiatives, did with Salcomp USA as they moved their corporate headquarters and expanded, to be able to give grants as long as they proved up they hired grants for $2,500 each UTA graduate or Arlington resident that you hire. We just got through meeting, my staff and I did today with a prospect, and we talked about that. The desire to be able to ensure that the people, should they come, that they hire from Arlington residents and UTA graduates. And I think that plays into that goal y'all have of UTA residents, or UTA students, more and more than when they graduate, stay in Arlington. You can show a year later we've seen that grow. But I'll be glad to get you those numbers. It'd be my pleasure. There's a whole bunch of them. I know there's some other questions and I want to share about. I brought you something I want to comment on, but somebody else had a question.
Mine is Kirsten Thatcher. Mine is not necessarily a question. It's going back to the goals, specifically the third goal, attract and retain local talent, especially university graduates and employers of high-paying jobs. I think it's worth considering. Arlington has 4 BTech high schools that are industry and work-based, and I think it's important for us to encourage like local business owners to partner with those high schools so that students, one, you start them early on career options here in Arlington before they graduate, and I think it's like a win-win for both because you are training the student to be the type of employee that you would want them to be, and then in the long term, you will have a job ready graduate because the truth is all students are not going to the university level. A lot of students want to get out of high school and start working because they want to make money. So, I mean, and that's just kind of the truth of the matter. So, I think it's super important for us to encourage those local businesses, the bigger companies. I know it's happening with like local hospitals and things like that, but just to put that in the forefront of the mind because again, Arlington has like 6 traditional-ish high schools and 4 of them are BTechs, and they all have different focuses. So, and in their focus areas, there are companies and organizations that lend themselves to that specific industry. So just keeping that in mind and in consideration.
That's a great idea, and I don't know whether you're aware, but the Greater Arlington Chamber has already got a dynamic program where they're teamed up with the districts and trying to, all the different schools in the district, and bring in juniors and seniors to actually go and intern or work with existing companies. So it's a great way to build on that.
You know, I've been with Marty all day today. We started out about 7 a.m. this morning.
That's what I brought. We referred to. Yeah.
We were sitting together, and we got a chance to visit with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ray Perryman. He's a world-renowned economist, and we got to listen to him talk about exactly what you just mentioned regarding the workforce. And so what we have seen and what he has shown us is that there has been a downward trend in the number of babies that are being born. He called them echo booms. So you have the baby boomers, right, from up to 1960, I think it was 1964. They had about, I think it was 4.6 million babies during that time. And then every generation has a certain number of babies born. And they're echo booms, right? Those children, they grow up to have babies and et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that he was really reiterating was the fact that our workforce is shrinking. but yet our growth is increasing, right? And then he also talked about disruptive, changes or disruptive technology or creative disruptions where you have, technology disrupts the market. And it doesn't reduce the number of jobs, it increases the number of jobs because we can become innovative, right? So these are things you're talking about. And these are the things that are constantly on our mind. How do we upskill our existing workforce when those disruptive changes happen? And then how do we train our youth, right? So that we can provide the jobs so that they're available because it's going to be very scarce. And then he went on to talk about some immigration issues, which I won't get into right now, but the point being is that we have to find ways to attract, retain, and train those students as well as those people in the workforce. And so these are things that we're constantly trying to figure out as economic developers, whether it be workforce development, small business outreach, LIFT fund, different types of skills training that we can work with Texas Workforce Development, Texas Workforce Solutions, the universities, community colleges, etc. So these are constantly just top of mind for us as well. But yes, 100%, you're absolutely right. We got to find ways to keep that talent here, find a way to train them, and get those skills, and then get the right companies that are going to provide jobs in the industries that are going to be transformational for the city. So a little bit of added commentary.
And also provide benefits to those companies, for those jobs. We got to have great jobs, good salaries, and low benefits. Ray would be proud of what y'all are doing because he really stressed today the importance of taking the longer view and doing longer planning, but he also said repeatedly, train and retrain. And that Texas' advantage is going to be limited. Right now, Arlington's advantage is we've got employment, we've got people, trained workforce all around us. But that, as Gus talked about, as Ray really stressed today, is going to fade. That creates a challenge. I did bring a couple of these, and I'll pass them around. I'll get you on an electronic copy if you want of some of the data he shared. Sorry, Councilmember.
Former.
Once a councilmember, always.
Victoria Farmeyers. I want to take us back to economic development and particularly the notion of transformational projects. We've talked about the walkability and the necessity for UTA to downtown to the entertainment district. And I thought I heard you say something, Marty, in the DevNet group discussion about, for me, it's Division Street, Bankhead Highway. How do we, there are lots of things that have happened in that area, but that's an area that could potentially be reimagined now with the transformational project with the hotel coming in to be a 1950s, beautiful signage, old street lights, lots of different things like that. Is that something that we should be thinking about as a transformational opportunity zone that should be included in this? Because I know for me personally, that's always been something I've heard and we never have gotten to do, but I think it solves a lot of those particular discussions we're talking about. Walkability, connectivity, and a transformational opportunity. Is that already underway, or is that something that we should be thinking about strategically placing within this plan?
Both. It's some of it already underway. Lindsay had to leave, but her shop has the real estate side of things. They've been working diligently to acquire land right away to provide for sidewalks on Division, knowing that's going to help immensely. But being able to do like what you're talking about, maybe do an overlay district or something. We got all these planners that are here putting this on. They can probably work with you to help foster something like that. That's a unique thought. And it is an historic asset. So.
I was just going to ask Anthony Powell, had one kind of big picture thought along with this economic development. It takes off a little bit from what you were saying. Is I know a lot of our projections for the size of Arlington 20 years from now is, in my opinion, a little bit conservative, or at least they perhaps are recognizing the fact that we are somewhat constrained with land, et cetera. But I'm thinking as a part of our plan, what we need to also consider is what if we somehow exceed the current projections, and how do we develop the support structure that might support that? So it's almost kind of maybe it's an appendix, or maybe it's a supplement to the plan that says instead of 435,000 people or 440,000 people, what if we're 450 or 470,000 people in 2045? And it's not out of the realm of possibility based on history, because I just saw Arlington Bar was just saying that it's 19% growth over the from 2000 to today. So I think as a community we have to decide one, is that something we're supportive of? And, you know, because we talk about so much vibrant economic development, if we're successful in all that, we may find that that's where we end up, you know, almost as a result of the economic development. So I think some more detail, or at least a top-line plan around what happens if we end up a lot larger than we're currently projecting.
You know, John, I do have a question. I know we talked about in one of our workshops about an innovation district, or a tech innovation district, to your point earlier. Has that been discussed amongst the group about designating an area for a tech innovation district?
Not in detail.
Not detailed.
Okay, because that would answer, I mean, that wouldn't answer, but that would be something to talk about in a particular area. We talked a little bit about it, and it was broached during one of our workshops with John and Mig. And I think that if we identify some areas that are blighted, or that are brownfield, or that are ripe for that type of opportunity, I think that would be great. You see cities across the United States doing this. Our city manager was open to the idea, especially some of those old rail spurs that could be green areas as well. And I think that if this panel or this board looks at potential opportunity in certain areas, I think that could be a very positive new district that would attract investment for the city of Arlington. Just like an entertainment district, or an international corridor, or a downtown district, et cetera. So I think an innovation district would be something where we could partner with a large developer to come in and start recruiting. So just, you asked, and so that was my comment on that.
That's exactly what I was looking for.
For the committee, that will be the Innovation Creative District place type. And so we got some initial feedback for ideas from community members and y'all as to where some of those place types could be placed around the city to help us begin envisioning or re-envisioning what that area could look like while still respecting the history of certain areas. And so in November, when we start exploring what those alternative growth scenario maps are, you'll actually begin to see where those common themes are in terms of where we're thinking as a community some of those innovation creative districts can be.
Can I tag on just real quick? Just keep in mind when you do that result or that study, we have one opportunity zone that's primarily residential, but it's right next to General Motors. So it's got that potential where it could maybe go both ways. And we know that through the new tax, the act that was passed, there's going to be a relook at opportunity zones, and the governor's office will. There'll be less of them named, but we know there's going to be selection of another somewhere. And who knows where that happens, but it might provide for an opportunity for innovation type.
I'll hand the microphone to Mr. Siddiqui, and then I think for time's sake, since we have 3 elements left, we'll move on to the next one.
Thank you, Tom Siddiqui. Okay, you all have talked a lot about UTA, and there's some really good work going on there. I haven't heard anything about what is going on in relation to DCC. That is another opportunity, and that is an important institution. And so, any thoughts with something going on there, or what are your plans?
I've sat down and met a person with Andy Bone and talked with him. We've had good discussions. I think we're scheduled to bring our entire team out to his place here and talk more. Part of the challenge that there's certain functions they teach. They don't teach everything at that campus. Maybe they do at other TCC campuses, related to manufacturing, for instance. The good thing for us is we also have Texas Manufacturing Assistance Center that's close by. We can cover some of that. They do a lot with business services, which you'll see in this Ray Perryman piece. That's called out as being a huge growth area. That's what we're seeing for ourselves. So most definitely, that's an asset. I wouldn't discount the growth at Arlington Baptist University and so many other institutions we have around us. I think we're going to see others who want to get a piece of Arlington's action.
So yeah, no, that's a great point. We recently visited with them as well. They came in. So GM, being our largest manufacturer. So about a few months ago, we had their whole team come into the city, and we visited with them about, they have a corporate solution service where they come in and they train companies that need to look at solutions for their company and possible training. And so we were partnering them up with GM. We were working on a GM grant for innovation. We talked earlier about, how do we create sustainable communities? I forget who mentioned that. And so we were looking at exactly that. I wanted to comment a little bit on it, but so we were wanting to get with GM about the possibility for sustainable vehicular transportation, right? You talked a little bit about, mass transit. So I won't talk about that because that's over here in this world. But with GM and the EV solutions, we have Wallbox, right? Which is a major, and Mosey
which are made and revitalized, is a local business that's in the area. Let me just say that. And one of the things that we talked to them about was teaming up with GM to create a corporate solutions training for a center that would teach people how to work on EV solution software, EV solutions, if you will. And so they were all for it. And then we had some legislation in at the state, at the federal level that kind of put the brakes on EV future potential, et cetera. I'm sure many of you are aware of it without getting into the politics of all that. And so they kind of put a pause on it, but that's still something that Dallas Community College or Tarrant County College can still do, right? So we're always working with them. So yes, absolutely, we're working with them.
Thank you. And just a reminder to the committee, this is only night one of many other discussions we're gonna have about all of the ideas. So even though we're gonna move on from this element for tonight, we will certainly be revisiting it over the next year. Jay?
Yeah, Marco, can you go to that PowerPoint? And you can actually, if you can advance the Mentimeter, you could do that. So people can start to respond around the connected and walkable and the Mentimeter if they'd like, as I talk through this. But I think this one will be a little meaty too, so we'll probably devote about 15, 20 minutes to this, so we can at least have 5 or so minutes on each of the other two. So connected and walkable, there's been a lot of discussion, as just mentioned again, around transit being one component, walkability and the sidewalks piece would fit in here, biking, and then also obviously vehicular traffic, and we want to think about freight and that sort of thing. How are we moving goods? So Arlington's destinations are connected to neighborhoods with multimodal infrastructure that allows comfortable, safe, and convenient options for how residents and visitors get around. Arlington residents imagine a city where the connection between neighborhoods, destinations, and people is effortless. Feedback highlights a strong desire for walkable communities, safer biking routes, and public transit that links homes to jobs, parks, and regional hubs. I think at the committee level and from the community, we heard a lot about that being transportation and the potential for gridlock ultimately, with additional people. Whether they're working, visiting, living in Arlington, being one of the big concerns. So I think that's kind of helping to fuel this discussion about making sure that we have alternatives. But again, the walkable community piece, as we know with talent attraction, retention, even employers, are looking for that, not just for their employees, but if they're going to be part of the community, they like that as well. The goals that we've identified: promote active modes of transportation through safe, accessible, and integrated multimodal infrastructure, provide innovative public transportation options that provide an affordable and convenient option for navigating within Arlington and connecting to the surrounding region. So it doesn't say what that is, but continue to innovate on public transportation. Strive for a vehicular network that prioritizes resident mobility, manages traffic congestion and roadway competition, and provides appropriate vehicular parking at destinations. So Marco advanced the Mentimeter, so you can help identify sort of what you think the policies, what the key initiatives, what the projects might be to advance these goals. And then I'm going to turn it over to John to continue with the presentation while you all respond to the Mentimeter.
All
so
right.
we can advance to the next one, Marco. Next slide. And one more. There you go.
This one will be a fun one for y'all. So back in 1979, the city actually conducted a study to assess how the city might be able to create a mobility crossing or an actual crossing over the railroad tracks from Johnson Creek to, what was it, Jim?
The study studies the railroad corridor from the west side of Arlington at Davis all the way to Johnson Creek, and evaluates lowering the railroad versus raising the roads at each one of the crossings that exists. And the study proposed that the best solution was to lower the railroad, and in some cases to split the difference where the road went up a little, the railroad went down a little, but in general creating a depressed railroad section that allowed free roadway crossings and the development of deck parks and that and such at a pretty expensive price for 1979.
I think one of the challenges of this study, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there was a lot more vacant land around the railroad tracks in order for a temporary track to be placed to the north. However, that's largely now developed, especially along Front Street. And so certainly I think this plan would probably definitely need to be tweaked. But what, if you have any other kind of insight on that?
Well, the city is looking at opportunities to basically update the study. We applied for some grants that would give us the opportunity to revisit and update the study to current date and time capabilities with those current improvements. We are aware that UPRR has long-term goals to add at least a third track and a potential fourth track through this area, having to connect Fort Worth's rail yard with Arlington's rail yard and more into Grand Prairie. So, I mean, we're talking, 20, 40 years down the road, as we look forward with this type of a plan, other companies are doing the same. And so, as we are looking to this, we're looking at crossings. And so that's a big deal for us.
Any questions or ideas related to the crossings or the railroad tracks? Nope.
Robert Snyder here, and I was just wondering, did this study in particular look at what effect that the type of crossing would have on the surrounding community? I'm wondering, like, if a bridge would have a detrimental effect or a positive effect on the community that's around.
It didn't specifically address that. It looked at it more of a holistically from a cost perspective and a feasibility perspective. Obviously, economic improvement capabilities were brought in as a factor, but more of a comparative from a cost perspective of what it can achieve, what it can benefit.
Chairman, good morning. This was done how long ago?
The final project that we have is dated April of 1979.
So submerging or depressing the railroad now with climate change, that's going to yield a little bit of problem, I imagine.
It's like drainage.
Drainage.
Yes, I mean, the creeks are the same that existed in 1979 as they do now, and addressing drainage is something that would have to be handled. And that would just be part of the plan that would be evaluated when that is done. I can tell you that there are other alternatives being evaluated in addition to this plan. We currently have a project for a pedestrian bridge over the railroad that is currently in the evaluation stage. We're getting ready to start a feasibility study for connecting AT&T Way across the railroad. And so various opportunities like that, they still exist. This study that we happen to have just discusses the fact that there are other solutions rather than just building bridges everywhere.
Jay, you mind moving to the next slide? Safe Streets, I think Dr. Ann Foss is going to kind of help me tackle these next slides about Safe Streets and some of the programs that she runs.
And I'm going to stand up because I've been sitting all day. So we will run through the next batch of slides pretty quickly, but happy to get questions or discussion. So the city spent all of last year working on a roadway safety action plan, which is called Safe Streets Arlington. Safe Streets Arlington. Council adopted it in December of last year. And this is really focused on looking at the crash data that we have, roadway traffic volumes, all of that data, coupled with a very extensive community outreach process that we did to develop a plan to move the city towards Vision Zero, or completely eliminating fatalities from our roadways. And one of the key themes that we talked about with this project is that safety needs to be a holistic approach. There are some things that the city can do to help improve safety through roadway design, through traffic enforcement, those types of activities, but we can't control every aspect of what people are doing on the roadway. So we really need the community to be involved, lots of education and outreach, working with folks from across the community to help spread that message of safety and importance. So it's really exciting that you guys are seeing that as an important topic as part of the comprehensive plan. I think it's a great opportunity for us to build on this plan that was adopted. Next slide. On the next slide you'll see, it's probably a little bit hard to see because it's small. On the left-hand side, this is something called the high injury network. And so the roadways that are highlighted on this map are roadways that were identified as having a higher likelihood for serious injury and fatal crashes. This was based on the historic crash data from a 5-year period. It was also based on traffic volumes. So many of people looking at this map, it kind of makes intuitive sense. If you live in Arlington and you drive around to Arlington, Cooper, Pioneer, Collins, Division, some of those key roadways which carry more traffic tend to have more crashes, and more of the serious crashes, especially higher speed roadways. So that's some of the data that we have pulled together to identify that map, and that map we'll use to help us prioritize projects through public works, seeking funding through grant programs or other opportunities, and put the projects and put the money where it will have the most impact on safety improvements.
And
Yes.
you might mention that it excluded the interstates.
Yes, that is a great point. We did exclude I-20, I-30, 360, and 287 from this analysis. Those are TxDOT controlled interstates and highways, so the city has less impact on those. We did include a number of the roadways I've mentioned, Division, Cooper, Collins, Pioneer, which are TxDOT facilities but function more like local streets, and that we have good partnerships with TxDOT to be able to do projects and make improvements there. Also on this slide is our public-facing safety dashboard. So this is available on the city's website. It has the high injury network map. It has a map of public input that we received through the process. It has crash data from 2018 now through 2024. It can be filtered in any number of different ways. So you can really drill in and see that data for yourself. And then we also have an implementation tracker. So of the 40-some action items that were identified in the plan, we are maintaining this dashboard and letting people know what we're working on, what we've completed. And so again, that kind of speaks to, you know, we need the entire community to be involved in safety. So we wanted to make this very public facing. Do you want me to pause for questions on safety here?
Garrett Hill, were school zones and like crossing guards part of this as well?
Yeah, school safety was a key theme that came up in the community discussions that we had. We had both AISD and MISD involved in our steering committee for the plan too. So big focus on schools. We've identified the schools on our maps and kind of prioritized locations that are close to schools. And that ties into the safe routes to schools work that the Public Works Department is doing as well. All right, moving right along. The next slide is on the city's hike and bike master plan, which was adopted in 2011. Obviously, walkability has been a key theme in these goals and in your discussions. So this plan identifies a network of both on-street and off-street pedestrian and bicycle facilities to create a network across the city. We are working on implementing this plan as roadway projects come up. If they're identified to have a hike or bike facility on them, we build those or incorporate them as part of the road project. Our Parks Department is working on incorporating trails and other things, off-street facilities that were identified into our park system. And then we also use this plan to help us prioritize when we're going after grant funding or other funding to build these projects. Questions on hike and bike plan?
Thank you, Councilor. So it was started in or completed, the plan was completed so far as the thought process is concerned in 2011. So what is the percentage of completion that was thought in 2011?
That's a great question. I don't have that exact number on the top of my head, but we can get that information to you. It's kind of a slow and steady process, but I can get those numbers and share with the committee.
Are these numbers available on the website? We can go somewhere on the website and check that what part is complete and what part is incomplete.
We do have a map through the city's open data portal that shows all the facilities on the plan and which ones are completed and which ones are not yet.
I'm asking these questions because I've talked to people and some of the seniors have mentioned that the plan is really moving very slow. So I thought that I will ask this question.
Yeah.
It's important especially for the aging population, and of course for the kids too. But thank you.
Okay. We will keep on rolling. No pun intended. All right, the next couple of slides focus on the city's public transportation services. The first one is our Arlington on-demand rideshare service. So this kind of falls into that bucket of innovative transportation approaches. This service launched in 2017, and we've given over 3.2 million rides so far. Currently, the service covers the entire city limits, as well as making regional connections up to the Centerport TRE station north of the city limits. And then on the west side of the city, we extend out into Fort Worth a bit in the East Jason I-30 area to pick up a couple of Trinity Metro bus lines. And this service has been a great fit for Arlington because it is on demand. It does not follow a fixed route or a fixed schedule. It's available when people need it. And so you can book the ride kind of in the moment. A van will pick you up within a block or two walk of where you are and then take you to your destination. So a little bit similar to an Uber or Lyft concept. They are shared rides, and we do have that 1 to 2 block walk. And those are some of the ways that we make the service more efficient and more effective for everybody. So there's the operating hours up there. Our fares are currently $3 to $5 based on the distance that you're traveling. And then for funding, we do receive formula Federal Transportation Administration funds that cover 35 to 40% of the cost of the service. The fare box that we collect from fares covers between 15 and 20% typically, and then the remainder of the cost is paid for by the city's general fund. And then I'll hop to the next slide. There's one more slide on this service, and then happy to take questions on that. So this just shares some of our performance data. So you can see the annual number of rides that we've given since we went citywide at the beginning of 2021. So we saw growth, certainly, and then we have seen kind of a plateau in the last couple of years. I think we are sort of settling into what we're calling a steady state for the service, where we're meeting the needs that people have for transportation, but trying to run a very efficient and cost-effective service as well. And the map on the right-hand side of the screen shows just a map of drop-off locations. And I love these maps because I think they really demonstrate how well this service provides access and opportunity across the entire 99 square miles of Arlington. So all of those dots represent someplace someone's been picked up, and if you're familiar with the map of Arlington and the city boundaries, it's pretty much filling in the entire space. So this is a great opportunity for our citizens to be able to get an affordable and personalized ride. Questions on the on-demand service?
Yes, Nina Anderson. My first question is the quantity of people that we've taken care of over the amount of time that we've been doing this is impressive, and it's very disappointing at the same time. And so the amount of money that we've spent, what would it take in order to triple that budget? What's it going to take? Because we stop at 9 o'clock, people who need it, who are working late. We're looking at growing our entertainment district, so people who need that transportation to work later hours, we need to take them into consideration as well. And if we expand our innovation corridor, most of those are around the clock, places where people work. What will it take from the city, grants, and federal in order to make that be effective dollar-wise and communication-wise? Do you have an idea?
Well, the current service that we operate today, our contract is around $9 million to provide the service. One of the things that we like about this type of service is that it is very scalable. So if we decide we want to extend service by a couple of hours every evening, that's a pretty easy thing for us to do. There's no capital improvements, no infrastructure, those types of things. So it really is, it comes down to the funding and the resources that we have and how we want to allocate them. The federal funding ebbs and flows a little bit, but it's been fairly consistent. We do split the federal funding that the city receives for transit between on-demand and our HandyTran service, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it would take a larger commitment from the city budget.
I was just gonna add, right now, our FTA funding, our federal funding really helps with a pretty substantial portion of the service. That's kind of capped out for us right now. We compete for funding with the rest of the region. And unlike some of the transit authorities where their funding kind of increases as their ridership increases, that's not the type of service we run. We don't get that kind of funding. So anything else we do to grow it, Ann's right, it's very scalable. It can move up, down, in, out, but most of the additional resources were we to grow it are going to come from the city. So it doesn't mean it's not doable, but then you get into the budget discussions where this is another expense of the city and it's competing things like with things like roadway construction, parks, public safety, which are all really important things. So it's just a difficult conversation.
Zach Graves. So just a quick question about types of riders. Do we have an idea, breakdown-wise, what percent might be utilizing the service that are non-Arlington residents that are either coming in for games, entertainment, or for work? I know, especially with the service cutting off at a particular time of night, some limited hours, sometimes I think on the weekends maybe. That could be really hitting someone that's coming in to just, coming to the entertainment district or maybe wanting to work at a certain time. Do we know what that breakdown is between residents and non-residents?
We don't know that for sure. We don't collect that kind of information from our riders. But we can deduce some of that, kind of looking at the rides data. We have done some surveys in the past to get demographic type information on our riders. We do have, a number of folks commute in and out of Arlington through the Centerport TRE station. That is one of our, top 10 destinations for the service. But like you said, because the service ends at 9 p.m. at night, and then on the weekends we run Saturday from 9 to 9, it's not really geared towards as much tourists or visitors. And then that has been City Council's priority over the years to focus on providing a service that's for Arlington residents to get to kind of essential trips, work, school, medical, those types of things.
Hi, Carlton, Washington. As I look at the numbers, expected from 2003, as they go down to 2025, is there any feedback in regards to customer satisfaction, in regards to this method of on-demand that could lead to increasing, doing it more if we look to grow it, or is that just kind of how the numbers sway? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do track kind of rider satisfaction very carefully and closely, and we've maintained like a 4.7 or 4.8 out of 5 rating over the years very consistently. We also look at some other quality of service metrics like how long is your wait time when you book and those types of things. And those have also stayed fairly consistent. I think what partially explains some of the increase that we saw that we're not seeing now with ridership is we had some external funding to pay for free rides for certain groups. TCC students, for example, we had some funding from the Council of Governments to allow them to ride for free. And we were doing some other marketing and promotions, kind of giving people the opportunity to ride for free to try out the service. Some of those folks stayed with the service and continue to be fair paying riders. Other folks were kind of one-offs, right? Like, I'll try it if it's free, but it's not part of my everyday use. So we saw some kind of artificially inflated ridership numbers through some of those types of programs that have leveled off now.
One of my concerns about transportation continues to be emissions. Yesterday and Tuesday were orange days. I felt that. It was strong, and all the way down to the freeways and in town. That's why I sound like this. I'm not enjoying it, and I'm not the only one because we have this valley of air that we deal with. Is there in federal government, state government, local government, any incentive funding for reducing emissions and reducing road repair requirement and traffic requirement that could offset any of this? That's one question. And the other one is, have we in any way entertained either utilization of trolleys or larger vehicles for high demand events to key areas, and then utilizing the smaller on-demand vehicles for first and last mile initiation for people and clustering them there and making them effective. Have we gone down that road with any detail?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to try to remember both parts of the question. I have two parts to my answer to your first question. So on the clean air front, with the on-demand service specifically, we've had council direction to focus on converting the fleet to hybrid or electric vehicles. So currently our fleet of vehicles is about 2/3 hybrid electric. And then there's also funding locally through the Council of Governments to install charging infrastructure that we are working on applying for. It's a chicken or the egg thing, right? You gotta have the charging infrastructure before you have the electric vehicles, but there's no reason to build the charging infrastructure until you have the electric vehicles. So we're working through that process, and there is funding available for those types of activities. A little bit broader scale outside of just the on-demand fleet, the city participates in the DFW Clean Cities Coalition. We recently received a bronze designation in the Charging Smart program, which is a national program to help promote EV charging infrastructure, and we have an anti-idling policy. So there are a number of things that we're doing to improve air quality, both in Arlington and across the region. And then the second question was about larger vehicles, kind of aggregating demand. We are currently doing a pilot right now called Arlington Express, which provides what we call a dynamic direct route. It has 2 stops here in downtown, one on UTA's campus and one right across the street at City Hall, and then it goes up to Centerport Station. And so it's fully integrated into the on-demand service. It operates during hours of peak demand, and so if somebody books a ride at that time and they're going between those locations, they get this express route service, which is, doesn't stop, doesn't pick up other people along the way a traditional on-demand service would. So we're piloting that right now with some funding from the Council of Governments, and honestly, we're not seeing as much ridership as we expected. And I think, one of the benefits of the on-demand service is that it can feed people anywhere and everywhere across the entire city. So we see really diffuse demand, but that does make it harder to provide those more fixed route style services for aggregation.
I was just going to add to, and you may or may not be aware, there's a lot of transportation history in Arlington, for better or for worse. And so, as was alluded to earlier, there have been a few public votes over the years where the question was asked to the public, would you like to put funding towards becoming a member of a transit authority? And we've gotten a no on that several times now. It's been a long time since we asked that question. But recognizing the importance of that, City Council and city leadership back in, I guess it was 2016, started thinking, gosh, is it time to ask that question again? Let's pull together a committee and create a transportation framework document for the city. So we did that. It's called Connect Arlington. And I was asking John, and we'll get that information to you guys. They spent about a year talking to and hearing from a lot of different experts across the transportation industry. They heard from the transit authorities, DART, Trinity Metro. They heard from Uber and Lyft. They heard from everyone, kind of across the spectrum, looking at just what are the different options, knowing that there's significant growth coming, knowing we've got a problem now and it's only going to get worse. What are our options to address this? And what came out of that was a high-level transportation framework that really, instead of focusing on specific modes, it really focused on goals and objectives and looking at different opportunities and ways to get there. So they said we want some sort of citywide coverage. We want it to be cost effective. We want it to be nimble, scalable, all of these different factors. And there's some different recommendations in there that you'll see when we get you the document. And kind of the initial or easiest recommendation and lowest hanging fruit was to create an on-demand rideshare system for the city, so that we could get activity across the entire city. We like to say we probably have better public transportation. It is not mass transportation, but it is public transportation. We probably have better access to public transportation than anyone in this nation. Across 99 square miles, you can get to public transit within a 1 to 2 block walk citywide. If we were a member of a transit authority, we would have a couple bus lines in the city, and unless you live close to that bus line or have a way to get there, it doesn't help you a lot. And Ann earlier, I'll just mention too, was talking about the cost effectiveness of the on-demand system. We spend, depending on where our ridership has been, $8 to $10 million a year on that. At a minimum, if the city was to go and do a contract agreement with Trinity Metro and Fort Worth, which is not even their full membership agreement, 3/8 of a cent, it would cost us somewhere between $37 and $40 million a year. And that would get us probably a train station at the northern part of the city, another stop on the TRE line, and a couple bus lines. So again, it's not that we don't want that, it's not that we don't think that's a great solution, but it doesn't fit our need and we don't have the resources for it. As part of that transportation, well, actually it happened before that transportation committee that I was mentioning took place. We had a study once that was actually commissioned through DART by their consulting firm at that time that looked at bus lines in Arlington to see what is the feasibility, where would they be, how much would they cost, would they be used. And they actually came back and said, we're looking out to, I think they were looking at 2040 at that time, maybe it was 2050. They came back and said, you don't have the density, this doesn't make sense. You might have the density along like Cooper in the future, but you're gonna have 67 stops and it's gonna take an hour to get from the north part of the city to the southern part of the city, and it's gonna cost, I can't remember the exact dollar amount, I apologize, it's gonna cost an exorbitant amount of money. So that committee did a really great job combing through all the options and coming to the realization that let's start with something like rideshare, but that's not the end. The city continues to look at innovative solutions, and we may have something that is more of a fixed route or a dedicated route in the future. It may or may not be on the ground. It may be some kind of people mover. It may go on the ground and then it needs to get through a busy roadway. We don't have right of way to expand and add dedicated lanes, so we rise above, and we're an elevated people mover. And we're a big part of the regional conversation on high-speed rail. Trying to see if we can make that happen, a corridor between Fort Worth, Arlington, and Dallas that would ultimately, ideally, connect from Dallas to Houston, and we would have a stop in Arlington. We are looking at innovative things like gondolas. We're looking at potentially a gondola system in the entertainment district to do a little bit of connecting to get people above the cars. It's not the single solution. Everything we do in transportation and the way we approach transportation in the city is a layered approach, because there's not going to be a single option that serves all the needs. And then we're looking at things like air taxis. Those sound really futuristic, but they're coming. And so what does that opportunity look like to move us regionally? That's not going, block to block in Arlington, but that is bringing people who are in Frisco or Dallas and want to come to Arlington for a job or an event into the city in a way that gets you, to your point, in a environmentally friendly way and out of the congestion. So I just wanted to give that framework. We'll make sure that we get that Connect Arlington document to you guys, because I think it's useful, and I don't want you to be under the impression that we have it just because all you see is Handytran and on demand, that we have a narrow focus. We actually have a very broad focus. We're just looking for ways to balance the demand and the need and the resources. Thank you.
Then I just want to check in with the committee on time. How are we doing? We have maybe 15, 20 extra minutes. Okay, sweet. After this question, we'll move on to Handytran and then the next element.
This is Mike Calavis. Thanks, Felicia, for all the information. It's very, very helpful. Regarding goal number 2 in this segment, the word public transportation. I'd like to see that word public. When I see the word public, I see city planning or public funded transportation. And I think this goal could be a lot more broad and expanded if we just drop that word and just say enhanced transportation options. And that would then, instead of implying we're going to have buses and trains, it can maybe expand it to be a private public option or maybe a private transportation option that could be included to achieve this goal instead of just public funded transportation. So that's my 2 cents on that particular goal if you want.
My microphone may have died. I'm turning it off and on. I talked to you about that. So I think I think just 2 more slides on the other component of transportation we have in the city, which is our Handytran service. It's our elderly and disabled service. It's for riders who are 65 years or older or have a disability. It covers the entire city plus 1.5 miles outside of the city, which is effectively an entire another Arlington. And that's something that historically has been in place since Handytrans started. That's something that we, in full transparency, are looking at right now. Is that the best use of city resources, or do we want to maybe shrink that external boundary a little bit and be able to focus some of our limited resources on rides happening within the city? So that's something that's going on right now. Much like the on-demand service, it's a rideshare service. It doesn't have fixed routes. We look at the rides that are coming in and the demand. We have really advanced software that looks at the city and those rides and tries to provide those rides in the most efficient manner. We run Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Saturdays, 8 to 9, so similar but not quite the same as the on-demand services. Still no service on Sunday. The fare is currently $2 per person per ride. We're also doing some analysis of the fares right now. And then similar to on-demand, we are also funded with FDA formula funds. We have a little bit of tech stop funding, and then the general fund brings in the tail end of the funding. Next slide. And then Handytrans been around since 1981, but just to look at the last several years of ridership, we're fairly consistent. You can see there, we had the drop during the COVID timeframe. We've been working our way back up, so we're at about 142,000 completed trips in FY25. You can see that boundary illustrated there of how the service area outside the city boundary. I think I know we're sure of that, so I'll stop there.
It'll be real short. In fact, it's not a question.
Taylor Oldred, hey, committee members, before we move off the connected and walkable, in the larger documents, there's, I think, 8 of us that submitted some comments before, and not to embarrass Robert Schneider, but he's got a whole dissertation here that's fantastic. And sadly, it's right next to mine, which is like 5 words. Install sidewalks and bike lanes, and that's, and then he's got this fabulous thing. So I hope this is being recorded because he's got really good comments here. So way to go, Robert.
All right, Jay.
All right, you can advance, Marco. So the last 2 vision elements, I think we can cover in about 5 minutes each, because mainly we just want to get your input on these. There are no additional presentation slides. So sustainable and healthy Arlington plans for future resiliency, invest in sustainable infrastructure, prioritizes community health, and protects open spaces and the natural environment. As I'm continuing to walk through this, you can go to the Mentimeter. Marco advanced it, so if you have ideas for policies and projects and initiatives, you can put those in there. But this is based on what we heard from the community, where they emphasize expanding green spaces, preserving natural resources, creating a cleaner, healthier environment to protect and enhance what exists today, while building resilient infrastructure for tomorrow's challenges. Specific topics: health and wellness, environmental stewardship, green infrastructure, and trees. The goals: protect, provide, and expand access to public open spaces and parks, promote health or community health, wellness, and recreation, preserve and enhance natural environments and resources, and strive to minimize negative environmental impacts resulting from land use and transportation, and provide sustainable and resilient infrastructure that supports current community needs and prepares Arlington for the future.
Hey Jay, real quick. I think the Mentimeter needs to be advanced.
You gotta refresh the screen.
I did.
You didn't?
Okay. I will be working more on this side.
Okay, sounds good.
We're good.
Okay. So yeah, we can maybe let's go to the Mentimeter just for a minute, Marco. Let's see if any of those are coming in. So providing transportation to healthcare appointments for those in need. So thinking about health and access to healthcare. Yeah, absolutely. So related to our connected and vision element as well. Again, this is environmental sustainability, sustainability and resiliency. Has to do with our parks, open space, Tree canopy would fit under here as well. And then, yeah, the different aspects of health around threats to health in terms of air quality, as mentioned here, close high demand areas to auto traffic and scale vertically. Parking to reduce traffic, enhances air and individual health. Community gardens, yeah, absolutely. It wasn't called out specifically in the vision element or the goals yet, but community gardens can definitely be something that we're promoting. Emphasize protection of trees, planting new canopy, citywide health initiatives, electrifying city-related fleet, including garbage providers. Great. So please continue to enter ideas there. Again, these are going to be sort of the initial foundation as we're developing additional policies, projects, and initiatives. I'll point out we have already looked at the previous plan and sort of assessed which recommendations there make sense to carry forward. And then, as I think is demonstrated tonight, John and team are doing a lot of work coordinating with our other departments and other partners to make sure that we're capturing what's already happening too or in the works. So we'll keep it on this one for now, sustainable and healthy, as I review the last vision element, and then we'll get into the last one and get you guys out of here. So you can go back to the presentation, Marco. Oh, I wanted to keep it on that one, if you can go back. Yeah, keep it on that one for a moment, just in case there's any last thoughts for people on the sustainable and healthy, and then we'll hit the last vision element. Welcoming and community culture. So Arlington welcomes a multicultural community that contributes to a rich local culture represented through community involvement, events, arts, and entertainment. Residents express interest in more gathering spaces and events that bring people together. So it's both the space and then the programming within spaces. There's strong desire for transparent communication from the city, deep community engagement, and intentional efforts to support cultural expression. I know between the city's efforts and our team's efforts, we've been getting a lot of praise, not to say that's perfect, but a lot of praise on sort of the level of engagement and opportunity to engage in the comprehensive planning process. And I think what I've heard at least is that people want to see that across the board and continue to kind of raise the bar there. So this would include multicultural and acceptance, arts, history, and entertainment, civic engagement and communications. And then the goals that we've articulated so far: celebrate culture and history through support for the arts, public events, and historic preservation. Welcome residents, workers, students, and visitors of all backgrounds to be a part of the Arlington community, and ensure regular, clear, and transparent communication and engagement opportunities between the city and the public. Marco, if you want to go to the Mentimeter, we will advance to this last piece in the Mentimeter. So policies, initiatives, and projects within this element for welcoming and community culture. But while people are filling it in, with the last couple of minutes before we hit before John hits a couple of next steps, any comments that people want to share on these last two elements, the healthy and sustainable, or the community, or the welcoming and community culture? If not, then we'll leave this open. So please make some suggestions around policies, initiatives, and projects. But we'll go back to the presentation, and I believe John has a couple of next step slides.
We got one question or comment.
I think maybe this is the place to talk about communication. I'm not really sure. But it seems to me if we have 0.25% of community participation in elections and when we have these open forums, that tells me that people are not listening. I know that we're busy, but we have to figure out a way to communicate. As a community, the words are the same, community. It's similar. We have to spend a huge portion of this budget on communication, in my opinion, if we want to stay a community, somewhat a group that is knitted together the way we are. We don't have major stakeholders like our neighboring cities do. We are all just working class people for the most part. Our major stakeholders don't live here. They might have their businesses here, but they don't live here. And so communication so that I'm not the only one in my neighborhood who knows what's going on, that's pitiful out of 69 homes in one little area. So communication is so vital to what we do. If we're not getting to people, we've got to figure out another way. And we have a university full of people who are specializing in that. So in my opinion, communication is truly the foundation for all of these portions of our framework in order to be effective. I think it's just vital if we are going to shift. We're about to lose, in Arlington alone, 52,000 people, I think, is the number of baby boomers and silent generation people in the next 6 years. And that's going to be, and we're planning for after them. So the millennials and the, what's after them? I can't say it. X and Y. They need communication more than anything else. So the voices communicating need to look like them, but they need to relate to the other people that they are funding. So creatively doing that is key for what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more comment or question?
No, just a comment, more like on the communication piece, especially like through this process. I put it up there, but I was typing too fast, so I forgot a piece of it. But to get people to engage more with like anything that the city is doing that they want community feedback on, going into different spots in Arlington. I know this process has been very like central Arlington, but there's north, there's south, southeast. So like offering opportunities there and going into spaces that already like exist, events that are already existing. I feel like I've done that already, but just around the city. And I think just thinking about getting communication out to younger Gen Z, millennials, maybe going into spaces that they can meet. Like, for example, I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha and I'm in the Arlington chapter. My peers aren't really aware of like what's going on in the city, except when I tell them or other people are speaking about it at this level. So maybe trying to like go to some of those meetings or something like that to kind of get all of this information out in front of like different types of communities.
Robert Snyder, and just kind of echo that. A couple of us were talking earlier, and you know, this is tonight we're meeting in a different environment, 11 pavilion, where it just kind of feels different than what we're normally doing. And I know that there's a lot going into having a public meeting, but is there an opportunity for us to host it in different areas of the city to where this meeting, so that way others can come and contribute who may not be able to otherwise, and we're all here to hear it and participate and, you know, understand that stuff. I know a couple of city council members have mentioned meeting in their districts. They have places where they can host us and that sort of stuff. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, definitely in the consideration. We did a roadshow back in March. Each council district had a workshop. Each council member hosted their own game night. So we do ensure that we are trying our best to engage, but as planners, we're always trying to do more. So thank you all for the feedback. Anything else? Vision framework, next steps. Tonight we discussed the vision framework with you all. We are going to pass that along to council on October 14th as part of an informal staff report. They'll get a copy of the vision framework that you guys have in front of yourselves, and then we'll be open for any questions or input that they might have. And then that will go online for full public review this month. And then in November at our public open houses, there'll be more on a showcase level where we're actually getting some more feedback from our community members, making sure that we are understanding them from our phase 1 when this was initially put together. So look forward to that. Next slide on future meeting dates and then future agenda items. Underscore that part. Future dates, November 6th, the MIG team will be in person, back with us. It's going to be a smorgasbord of a lot of materials to look at, including those alternative growth scenario maps that's based off of the gameplay. We will have graphics of all the place types that you guys have been learning about, as well as talking about some more preliminary policy items. We also have on the agenda for December 18th, well actually we don't have an agenda, but I put that on there in the event that there's a future agenda item, or perhaps such a panel like this with some different departments, giving y'all that opportunity to give us some homework to do over the next 2 months and prepare another similar meeting such as this for yourselves that might be helpful, if this has been helpful. Hopefully it has been. But any future agenda items, whether it be for December or just, giving us some homework that we need to prepare for y'all that would help along this process?
Thank you, Nina Henderson. I just want to say thank you to folks who are here to speak to us. It is very helpful that you have shared this information. I don't know how my fellow steering committee members feel, but this is a responsibility, and I want to do the best that is possible to be representative and to be hearing. And the more that we know, the better that we can discern. So thank you for taking the time. I don't know what the framework is for us learning or sharing other things, but I think more is more and will help us better. So let's meet on the 18th and let's learn. I need more input so that I don't feel like I'm wasted our city's resources. Thank you.
Hi, Victoria Firefighters. Along those lines, thank you again, but I wanted to ask you, John, is there, I want a one-stop shop? Because I'm thinking of all the plans that have been written since since the last strategic plan. There's been a lot of adopted plans. And I think one of the things that really spoke to me tonight is that we need to be thinking about those. What are the good parts of those? What are not the good parts of those? What do we want to continue? I know you're doing some of the work on the MIG side, but I want to do some work on our side to really think that. So if there's other plans that you think we should have, is there a way to put them on links on one page for us to do that? Thanks.
So in the email last week, we created a new folder where there's a lot of plans, and there's going to probably be a lot more plans added. So please feel free, if you open up a plan or want to have a meeting, I can certainly coordinate a meeting with the department of that plan, and then we can continue to explore more forums such as this, and they can be at different parts of the city, as long as we notify the public as to where exactly we're going to be meeting and it's accessible to everyone. So yes, we can explore all of that over the next year as we continue to learn together and figure out what it is that we need to work on over the next 20 years. So I'm excited about all of it.
Thank you very much, Dr. I think we should thank a couple of people, the residents of Arlington who came in here, and probably they came in the last time also, but due to the lack of quorum, they weren't able to speak. Thank you very much for really coming in and putting in all your good thoughts.
So just that I have a consensus, everyone okay with the December 18th meeting for now? When we reconvene in November, we can really confirm it, but I'll start working on an agenda and some ideas that we can do on that meeting, and hopefully make it fun again with another holiday right around the corner. Any other questions, concerns, comments? All right, before I hand it back to Chair, I do want to appreciate our panel of Arlington leaders. I think we all learned a lot, and I'm excited to continue learning.
John, do you want to?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I forgot about the bags. We got swag on. And so on the back of your chair, you guys have goodie bags. There's several Innovate Arlington items. we will start kind of utilizing that as part of our engagement method over the next phase and a half of Innovate Arlington with the community. So happy that we could share that with y'all today. And as someone pointed out, it was intentional that we created a new spirit here to kind of celebrate what we've been doing and what's still to come.
Also, there's this T-shirt. So if anybody's interested in purchasing, because in my office they started, I want to get this one. It's Innovate Arlington. So if y'all are interested, John will send some more information.
Okay, thank you all for coming tonight. It's been a long meeting and very productive. And thank you, staff, once again for spending your entire evening with us. Being that there's no further business, this meeting is now adjourned at 7:49 p.m. Thank you.